Welcome to Stories My Mother Told Me. The title of today's story is A Tale of Two Friends. Once upon a time, in the small town of Lakewood, nestled between rolling hills and lush forest, were two inseparable friends, Evie and Gwen. They grew up together as both families knew each other and their fathers were also friends. Hence, they have literally been in each other's lives since forever. Their friendship was like a well-tuned melody, harmonious and beautiful. They shared everything from laughter to dreams, and they believed their bond could withstand any storm that life might throw their way. Some people admired their friendship, while others envied them. Evie had a rich parent, while Gwen was raised by a not-so-rich parent. After some years, Evie's dad, Lucas, reached out to his friend and suggested ways he can improve his business presence, do better, and improve the quality of life for his family. All his suggestions made sense, but there was only one thing left: money. But at the end of the conversation, Lucas offered to help him out, which he did. He invested a lot of money in Harry's business and made sure he succeeded. After all, he was known in the entire community as a philanthropist. Gradually, Harry's business bloomed and he became more successful. This gladdened Lucas, and he said to himself, "I just concluded a rewarding project." Things were going on smooth for both families and the girls, until one day, Gwen's father made a terrible decision at his business and he fell into serious debt. His creditors threatened to throw him and his family in prison. Harry was at a crossroad at this point and was greatly troubled. Every day, he would come home angry and agitated. This had a very negative effect on his family, and they were gradually drifting apart. Every day, Gwen will tell Evie about the struggles her family are going through, and this breaks her heart. And in the meantime, Evie always used her surplus to cover up Gwen's deficiency. And sometimes, this act of kindness also extends to her parents. Also, at the approval from Mom, she would regularly take food and other essentials to Gwen and her family. One day, she asked her father if nothing can be done to remedy the situation. Her father was surprised after hearing the whole ordeal, as he has noticed that his friend has been acting strange and distant, but has never really opened up to share his troubles. After all, they've both been busy and working hard. After a few deliberations, he decided to reach out to Harry and ask him about the situation. He opened up and begged for assistance. He told his friend all that had happened with his business and how he made some investments out of greed. He kept taking on loans upon loans simply to expand his business, and the more his business grew, the more he became money thirsty, until he fell in the hands of fraudsters. Lucas, being a kind-hearted man, told him not to worry and that he's gonna clear the bills till he gets back on his feet. That same evening, the creditors came by and took him and his wife away. He was beaten severely and they threatened to kill his wife. Meanwhile, Gwen hurriedly went to Evie's home and told her family what had happened. Lucas, who had intended to go clear the debts by morning, had no choice but to leave his house that night. Meanwhile, Gwen hurriedly went to Evie's home and told her family what had happened. Lucas, who had intended to go clear the debts by morning, had no choice but to leave his house that night to where his friend was taken, and he promised to bring them the check the next day. After much plea, they let them go because they all recognized Lucas and he was well respected. The following morning, he arrived early and cleared the debts of his friend, and everything returned to normal. One day, a storm swept through Lakewood, bringing with it challenges that tested the very foundation of Evie's and Gwen's friendship. The storm not only battered the physical landscape, but also unleashed unforeseen circumstances that may pose a challenge. The first challenge came when a massive tree fell and completely destroyed Evie's house. And not just that, her father was also injured as he was in the house when it happened. While they were yet looking for how to solve this, messengers came and told them that their department store, which was their main source of income, was swept away with the storm. This shattered the whole family and left them dejected. Evie's father, being a philanthropist, concluded that they will get help from others in the community, especially those he has been so kind and generous to. First, he sent his wife to ask Harry, Gwen's father, who is his friend, if they can stay with him for a week until he figured out what next to do. So she went and asked Harry, her husband's friend, about their request. But to her dismay, Harry bluntly refused and said, "While your husband was busy squandering money and putting on a show as a good man, some of us were out there working hard and making money for this stormy day. Unfortunately, I will not be able to house you guys. Maybe you can ask around." As soon as she left, Harry's wife asked him why she visited, and he told her everything and the request they've made, and also relayed his response to her. At this she said, "That is fine, my husband. They deserve what they're getting. The last time your business was suffering, she was out there, parading herself like a redeemer, sending her daughter to feed us with crumbs. She never esteemed us important to deliver the meals herself. Now, she has to go through what every normal person experiences in life. And beside my husband, if we shield them from every backbreaking circumstances, how will they learn how to truly live?" Gwen came out and said to her parents, "How could you say all of that about the same people who have been nothing but kind to us so many times? I can still remember how I was able to return to school because they paid my fees when you guys couldn't afford it. Now it is time to extend little acts of humanity to them, and you are turning down this opportunity? How can you be this callous?" Both parents uniformly hushed her to keep quiet and sent her away. They also warned her to avoid Evie at all costs. They don't want to see her hanging around that Brooke family. She insisted and told her parents that her friendship with Evie surpasses every other thing, and not even them can break that bond. Stupefied at her response, both of them uniformly urged her to keep quiet and sent her away to her room. They took away her phone and grounded her, as they were really bent on breaking every bond the two girls shared. Gwen cried throughout the night and started scheming ways to get out of this situation. Meanwhile, Evie's mom, dejected and awestruck at his response, returned to her husband to relay his reply to him. Upon hearing his friend's response, Lucas groaned in disbelief and incredulity. He called his daughter and told her everything, and also asked that they stay away from everyone in that family. Her heart sank as she immediately thought about her friend and what's gonna happen to their friendship. She asked the father if that included Gwen, and he said yes. She pleaded and told him that the friendship meant so much to her. And he says, only time would tell. Lucas, always a problem solver, suggested they find a way around this situation. Evie, however, was terrified, but despite her fear, she trusted her parents. They worked tirelessly together, overcoming obstacles and learning new skills along the way. And neighbors who heard about all that happened to them gathered together and said, "We cannot let them go through this alone." Never has Lucas ever turned a blind eye to anyone's suffering. His challenges is our challenges. They all swung into action, and in no time, almost everyone in the whole community were supporting them and bringing whatever they could lay their hands on to support them. This continued for several days, and they eventually finished the building project. Their home became more beautiful than it was. During this time, neighbors were asking about Harry and his family, as they all knew about the friendship of both families and why they are not visible during this difficult time for their friends. People constantly asked Evie about her so-called best friend, but every time she couldn't find a valid response to give, as she could not understand why she hadn't seen or heard from her best friend since the storm. In her quiet times, however, she will cry and be in denial. To make matters worse, people who were jealous of their friendship started telling her horrible things about her friend. One of such people was Susan, their schoolmate, who has always wanted to be Evie's friend but hasn't gotten the chance to be. She took advantage of this situation and visited Gwen, asking her why she isn't present to assist her friend and her family. Gwen told her all that transpired and how she's not allowed to leave the house. She wrote a note and sent it through Susan. Susan opened the note and hurriedly went home to write a new one. In it she said, "I am sick and tired of you always telling me what to do. I am weary of living in your shadows. You always seem to have the perfect life. Now it is your turn to face life's challenges. I do not expect you to cower in fear. Face it. As of today, you cease to be my friend, and I wish your family become poor and stay so. I have new friends who are now of the same class as me." As soon as Evie read the note, she couldn't believe her eyes, and tears were rolling down her cheeks non-stop. Susan saw this as the opportunity she's been waiting for and started saying all kinds of lies about Gwen. She told her that Gwen is already parading herself in the community as the daughter of the wealthiest man. She went ahead to tell her that Gwen also asked not to see her ever again. Evie handed the notes back to her and went to their favorite spot. She said in her heart that there is more to that note. She was certain that that wasn't her friend speaking, and she decided in her heart not to dwell on the content of the note, but rather give her friend the benefit of doubt. "I will wait and hear her say those words directly to me," she said. Susan, on the other hand, wrote a response for Gwen and said all sort of hurtful things in Evie's voice. Gwen cried and cried and cried, but then she also made excuses in her heart, saying that Evie has every reason to feel the way she does. But what she doesn't understand is if Evie actually meant those things she said in the note. After several weeks has passed, Things were beginning to return to normal for Evie and her family. And during all this time, she hadn't heard a word from her friend. Her father reminded her of what he told her earlier. Only time would tell. One day, Gwen went to her favorite spots with the hopes that her friend would show up after sending a note, this time through someone else. And to her delight, she showed up. Their first instinct was to run and embrace each other. But they did not as soon as they remembered all that has transpired. Evie finally spoke in tears and sincerely expressed how she feels to Gwen. Gwen, on the other hand, was dumbfounded at all the things her friend is saying. She also poured out her hurt, and as you would expect, Evie was also surprised. They both revealed all that truly happened and how they kept getting negative reports about the other person. Both realized that they've been misrepresented, and all these weeks of heartache was as a result of listening to the voice of strangers and drawing conclusions about the other person without getting all the facts. They hugged each other and promised to stick close to one another regardless of their circumstances. They also promised to give each other an audience before taking to heart whatever anyone else says to them. So their friendship was revived and deepened through shared struggles and triumphs. In the end, the storm passed, leaving behind two friends now stronger and more resilient than ever. They decided to channel their bonds into helping their families. Thanks to the enduring friendship of Evie and Gwen, their story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of life's storms, true friendship could weather any challenge and thrive despite flaws. This is story my mother told me. In this story, we've learned some new words. The first is agitated. This word means troubled in mind, disturbed and upset. The second is remedy. To remedy means to correct a situation or medication. A medication can remedy a sickness to correct a situation. The third word is squandering. Squandering. This means to spend extravagantly or foolishly after squandering all his money. The next word is humanity. It means to be compassionate, sympathetic, or generous. Show some humanity, Gwen told her parents. The next word is callous. Callous, feeling no emotion, feeling or showing no sympathy for others, or hard-hearted. Gwen told her parents, now you want to be callous? Hard-hearted. The next word is stupefy. Stupefy, to be surprised, or astonished, or astounded. And then we have incredulity. Incredulity, skeptical or disbelief, unwilling to admit or accept what is offered as true. When Evie's father heard about Harry's response, he was met with disbelief or incredulity. And the last word is resilient. Resilient. It means an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. Someone who is strong, someone who is flexible, someone who is not easily freaked out. Have you seen a resilient person today? Well, these are some of the few words we've learned in this story. There are lots more, but we picked out this few. Did you learn something new? If you enjoyed watching this video, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends as these help us grow. Thank you and see you in our next story. Bye!